Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Single Parents Daily Podcast with your hosts.
Chady, Dunmore.
Are you sure about that?
You know what? I've been prolonging my last name because I'm in a new relationship. So I kind of feel bad saying my old marriage last name. That's why I've been doing that. Is that weird?
This was the longest intro we've ever had, Robin. So
Because
we've got
Hey,
Chady,
Mark.
last name to be named at a later date, and Evan DeMarco. And so we are stoked. As we talk about time and time again, our goal here at Single Parents Daily is to bring you guys as many different resources as possible to get through the challenges of being a single parent or being a parent in general. And in this world that we live in right now, I don't know if there's a single tougher job of being a parent. Maybe being a Secret Service agent, but that would be it, because you just never know when you're going to get shot at. And so we are excited today to bring the great from the north, from the beautiful north, the
the
city of
beautiful
Vancouver,
North.
Robbin McManne.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. So
Yeah.
you've got a pretty impressive CV I just want to say as a parent. And I think that, like all great parents, there's this recognition that um, parenting comes out of an effort, right? It's not something we're just instinctually good at. And so you kind of had a revelation in your story about recognizing that you wanted to be a better parent. And so I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about how you became you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. For me, I thought I would be like Mother Earth as soon as I had children. Like, bring the children to me. I shall care for them. I shall nurture them all. And then I had my own kid. and and I have two boys. So they're 15 and almost 13. And I mean, I couldn't love them more. And my oldest, my first child, really threw me for a ringer. Threw me in more ways than I ever knew. I had no idea what I was in for, and so it really started when he was born. I had an epidural. He went up instead of down. I was in labor for 2 days and ended up with having a C-section. And the only reason why I bring that up is because for me the shame spiral started then, because I was like, well, wow, I can't even do this right, air quotes. And then I couldn't nurse him, and then I couldn't comfort him and soothe him and help him to stop crying. None of that. And I know now that he has some special needs and some other things going on. And so, but what happened is that it sent me on a spiral of shame and confusion and helplessness. But I also didn't want anyone to know that I was struggling and suffering, because in the rest of my life I was winning. I was doing great. I had a career that I loved. I had I still do have a wonderful husband. And everything else was really good in my life. And I was ashamed that I couldn't do this one thing, especially when my expectation of myself was that I was going to be so wonderful and so nurturing and all this stuff. And I found myself really angry. I found myself yelling at my kids all the time and enraged a lot. And I knew with every cell in my body that this is not who I was. This is not the kind of parent I wanted to be. And so I tried to get help, but I wasn't getting the help that I wanted. And the help that I got, psychologists, like teletherapy, did tons of different things. And it was all came back to, it's my fault. So that just made me feel even worse. And I finally found something in the world of peaceful parenting that actually made sense to me. For the first time, I heard that it was that I could accept that sometimes I lose my cool faster than my kid does. That I can
Go ahead and
accept.
cuss if you want to. We're not a PG show.
Okay,
If
really?
you want to lose your shit, lose your shit. It's okay.
Oh, good. I love losing my shit. Well, no, I don't anymore. Well, but I do still sometimes. Like, I'm not perfect, and that's the other thing too. So, essentially, to keep the story as short as I can, and you can ask me any questions about it. I really finally found what I needed in this sort of world of peaceful parenting where I could acknowledge and honor my own feelings and needs and also those of my child and my boys. And that was a game changer for me to accept that I was flawed as a parent and that I could also say that was okay, that I was flawed. And I also started to unravel my anger, my triggers, and that was really eye-opening for me, and it was such a transformation. I couldn't deny it, so that's why I do what I do now. And just my background was in marketing before, and so now doing this work, to see the transformation for other parents is the best feeling in the entire world.
Wonderful.
What was the aha moment that made you just change?
Well, there wasn't a moment. It was a slow progression. I feel like it's like yoga. It's like the practice of peaceful parenting. One major thing did happen. My dad died, and I had this sort of PTSD experience afterwards, reliving everything, and it really brought me to my knees. And I had to change some stuff in my life anyway, and a lot of my stuff was related to my dad. Like I would yell at my kids for not listening to me, and that's because I never felt heard, right? So there was a lot of that stuff. And I announced to my kids I was not going to yell anymore. I had come back from a conference on parenting. I was not going to yell anymore, you guys. I am sorry that I ever yelled. And of course, like 20 minutes later I was yelling because I didn't heal my stuff. So it wasn't until I healed my stuff and looked at myself that I was able to show up differently for them. And when I showed up differently for them, they showed up differently for me.
Okay, so I definitely want to get into that, and I
Yeah.
think that I've got some questions specifically as some stuff that I'm dealing with, but I'd like to take a quick step back and try to understand a little bit, I'd like to ask this to both of you guys as moms. Where does the pressure come from to have, this idea of being a perfect parent? And I want to elaborate that on just a little bit because I remember when we first found out that we were going to have a kid, she was going to have a kid. We don't have kids. That's another pet peeve of mine. Guys say like, we're pregnant. I'm like, no, she's pregnant. Like you just whatever. But she found out she was pregnant and she instantly registered for the bump. Remember that, like that
Hmm.
thing? And I remember they have the whole birthing plan. I want to be spritzed with lavender water and I want Yanni to be playing in the background. And I remember the OB talking about it's like, your parenting plan should be this. You walk into the hospital with a baby, you walk out, or you walk into the hospital without a baby, you walk out with a baby. But is society leading to a degree of pressure where you guys kind of feel like there's this, you have to be this, and maybe that's not necessarily instinctual, it's more societal based?
I'll let her answer first.
Uh, okay, let me break it down. Here's the thing. We are told all of our lives from little girls on that we're going to be moms, right? We have baby dolls. We practice changing diapers. And look, we're natural nurturers. Women are wonderful, strong, amazing humans. And nobody tells us how to be a mom. Nobody really tells us what is involved in parenting. And so what happens is we have this image of ourselves. We hear other parents complain about their kids and that sort of thing. I heard that too. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to do this differently." No, don't even worry about it. Like, I got this. But what we don't know, first of all, is that all of our past is going to come back to us. Like we say kids are resilient. I don't think adults are so resilient. And when I say it comes back to us, it comes back because when we are kids, whether we like it or not, we're going to have some stuff happen to us when we're kids where we are disregarded or disrespected by our parents. We're all going to do something to our kids that we do unintentionally. It's not about throwing our parents under the bus at all. But what happens is that, let's say, we are told like your opinion doesn't matter. And as kids, we're powerless to really do anything about it. But now, when we have kids and we have an opinion about something and they walk away from us or they don't want to listen to us, we feel like we did back when we were kids, when we were little and we were powerless. But now I have the power. So now I go and I react from that place, but I'm yelling at the wrong person. So that's one thing, that we bring our baggage back, and nobody tells us that. Nobody tells us that at all. So you kind of have to heal yourself and know where your pain points are, because we operate from the place we were hurt the most. Oftentimes that's in childhood. Second, we have this because we are nurturers and we want to be perfect parents, perfect, air quotes. we want to do this so well, and there's this expectation on us to do things really well. And if you don't, you're judged, you're criticized, and that is deep pressure. And the shame is so real. And you can, I mean, from how you have your baby, you're judged on C-section, natural birth. Oh, you had a natural birth. Did you use drugs? Did you not use drugs? Right? Was it a home birth? Was it a hospital birth? Oh, people have got opinions about it all. And then
Is it a
breastfeeding.
water birth?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What pool did you get? Oh, I didn't get one. Oh, you didn't? Oh, what doula? What midwife? Like all of this stuff, right? Then nursing. How long do you nurse for? What if you can't nurse? What if you bottle feed? All of that stuff. Tons of shame. And then co-sleeping. Should I, shouldn't I? And I remember being so overwhelmed and confused. I had just had a baby. I had just had major surgery. I'd never had an IV before. I didn't expect it. And I wasn't able to make sense of the whole birth situation, which I thought was ridiculous before that happened to me. So I think that there is this setup where we are told we need to be moms, but then when we become them, we want to be the best that we can out of really good intentions, but we fall short, and then we feel bad and shameful about it, when in fact it's normal and we're not alone, but we don't share that as much as we should.
I agree with her. Spot on. Like, it's crazy. I would say your second was my first, and then it was second. Your first was my second. Only reason why is because it was the expectation of being that perfect mom, because we set that expectations on ourselves, right? Because that's the effort that we want to put into this and loving our kids and being the perfect mom. But we can't help to have that generational background that's like
Exactly.
hovering over our shoulders, and and it's up to us to break that. And it's up for us to set the new standards, and knowing that we can communicate with our kids, we can listen to them without doing things that our parents did. And I think it took me so long to figure that out. I think it's just recently that I have a teenager, she's 14, and I'm starting to figure that out now, because looking at your background, I'm like, you have to figure out how to let your kids be vocal and share their feelings. And I think right now it's a new chapter for us. It's how do we get them to talk,
Mhm.
right? And so that's something trying to listen more and be more aware. But it's everything that you said as far as the expectations of being the mom and looking the part, and
Yeah.
it is so
And that's only
hard.
part of it. I didn't even talk about how we're supposed to look, how we also work, how, all of those things, right? All of these expectations, like I've got to be skinny afterwards. I've got to, do all of the things. We can't do all the things. We need to ask for help. We don't want to ask for help. And we also have to stop perpetuating this myth that we are perfect, which means we've got to, be real on social media. But it's hard to do it, right? And I even get caught saying, oh, well, it must be nice, your kid gets to do this, or your kid can do this, and mine can't. And then I think, nope, I can't get sucked into that, right? Because you're
Yeah.
coming from this place of lack too, which we don't want to come from. But yeah, it is really tough, and we need to support each other. We need to stop judging each other and accept each other's flaws, and also accept what other people's choices are. It's okay if they're different than yours. You don't need to be my enemy because you can't breastfeed and I can, or vice versa. It's okay. It's okay. There's more than one path to the same
Yes.
result, right?
I love that you said that, and I think that probably extrapolates a little bit more to even the political spectrum that we're dealing with right now. It is okay to have difference of opinions, but we seem to have come to this place. And I actually remember my ex kind of going through this, where, how long are you going to breastfeed, and then when do you go back to work? And it feels like there's this mom shame, right? It doesn't matter which choice you make, you cannot win. And it's like, if I choose to go back to work after 6 weeks and breastfeed for 2 years, that doesn't mean that your decisions are wrong. That just means that my decisions are right for me. But it's like, why has society gotten to the point where one person's decision automatically negates all of the decisions that you make? It's
Yes.
just weird.
I feel like
It's
a
not
lot of the
about you.
yeah, I think a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of I think a lot of the opinions come from people closest to us, right? I would
Mhm.
think it's usually family and friends that have suggestions, or I would do this because this is what worked for me. And this is, X, Y, and Z. And then it's usually keyboard warriors, people who love to just like, they see what you put out there and they want to judge because it's not what they think is best. So
Yeah,
that
I
was,
love what you just said. It's not about you. Like,
yeah.
It's
you
not.
narcissistic asshat. Like,
But I've
like
had people say that to me too. Oh, yeah, she's the one that just wants to grow all these snowflakes and all this stuff. And that's not what I'm about. Not at all. Not at
Mhm.
all. So I hear the criticism too, whichever way you slice it. You're so right, Evan, that it's just like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Mhm.
And what happened to just being curious about somebody else's choice or minding your own damn business,
yeah.
right?
Because
Yeah.
how good of a parent can you be if you're that scope locked on what everybody else is doing? Focus on your own damn kids. Like,
Yeah.
while you're judging that mom, your kid's eating his own poop.
I have a story about that too, actually.
Oh, well, that's a great transition. So we've definitely covered a lot of the background that brought us to this place, but I know that there's so many questions that I think that you can answer. Now, one thing that you keep bringing up is getting your kid to talk, and I'd love to kind of address that a little bit more, because I know my daughter at 6 years old, I can't get her to do anything. Like communication is such a hard thing for
Is
us.
she having a hard time communicating?
About feelings, about, like, last night is a
Yeah.
perfect example. She I gave her a bowl of fruit for dessert. And so when she's done with it, she wanted more, but rather than ask me, she just sticks the bowl in my face. And I
Mm,
know full on what she wants, but I'm
Mhm.
like, can we talk about this? Can you
Yeah.
open up? Can you tell me what it is that you want? And then she starts spelling things. And I'm like, so I asked her, like, what is the challenge? Why are you not wanting to talk about this? Or why are you not wanting to ask? And, like, this
Mhm.
isn't a big deal. So, like, let's get into a lot of the work that you're doing. But I think you and I are in the same spot. As like, how the
Yeah.
hell do we get our kids to talk?
okay. Okay. So with every parenting issue, there are two sides of the story. There is your child and the way they're doing their thing, and there's how you take it. So we've got to look at both of those. So I want to start with one of you. Who wants to start first?
I'll start first.
Okay. Okay. So your 14-year-old doesn't want to talk to you
No, she
about.
talks, but I would
Okay.
say even when she was younger, she did that a lot where it was very hard for her to convey her feelings, her thoughts. And I would always tell her, baby, you have to talk to me because closed mouths don't get fed. I can't help you if you're not communicating.
Mhm.
The second thing is she's doing much better at talking because I'm listening more. I know I'm guilty of not, I'm sitting on my hands better. But now I feel when I pick her up from school, I want her to just be like, here we go. Like, just tell mommy all. And especially when I pick her up from her dad's, because I feel like they come back like a different kid when they're at the other parents. Um, yeah, I'm sticking to those
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, I mean, look, you hit the nail on the head in terms of listening. Like that's the thing that we don't do. We talk way too much
Mhm.
and don't listen. And when we do
What was
listen,
that? Sorry, couldn't help
You're
myself.
such a jerk.
when we do listen, we're listening to validate our thought, or we're listening for the answer we think that it is. We're not listening to understand, we're listening to respond, and we need to stop it. We need to be in the moment with our kids and just really listen. And sometimes you will feel feelings about having to like lean into listening to your kids, but I'll tell you what, it is a game changer, because what you're doing by just listening to your kids is you're telling them so many things. You're saying, A, what you have to say is important to me, that B, your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas are valid and important, which means that your child is going to feel heard, it's going to feel valued and valuable. And that goes a long way in creating a deep bond with you, but also their own sense of confidence. Because I can tell you, every parent that I work with, we talk about their parenting past first. And so many people tell me they weren't heard, they were disrespected, that their feelings and ideas didn't matter. And that one change that you can make for your kids by just listening to them is a game changer. So
Mhm.
that's one. The other thing is that you do really want to work on this relationship from the get-go, right? You want to be the kind of parent who does listen to your child, but I also want you to ask open-ended questions, right? So when you talk to her, just, ask her open-ended questions like, what do you feel about this? What are your thoughts on this? Right? Ask her those things. You can even ask her wacky questions like, okay, so if an alien came down from the sky and took one person from your classroom, who would that be and why? You can do silly things like that too, right?
I want to write
To,
that one down.
yeah, to get them talking about things, right?
Yeah.
But you have to listen,
Mhm.
because when you listen, they will want to talk to you. But you also have to be careful, because what if they say something you don't like, and maybe they've stopped talking to you because they're scared of your reaction?
Mhm.
You want to be a safe haven for them in terms of their emotions, and be able to say, okay, maybe I don't like what you just what you told me you did, or and I'm not saying you say exactly that, but you say, okay, so that's something that happened. How do we work this out? And
Mhm.
soliciting ideas from them and solutions from them is so much better than you talking over them and just, bombarding them with your stuff. And then that turns into a lecture. And when was the last time your lecture ever led to the change in behavior you were looking for? It
Right.
just doesn't,
Yeah.
right? It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I need to stop lecturing.
What's funny is
Yeah.
that I've been watching my boyfriend talk to my daughter because they have a great relationship. And
Mm.
he always asks questions. And she always gives more information than she would give normally me. So I'm like, I have to start doing that. But it's everything
Yeah.
you just said right now. It is like listening to her and asking the questions. And that's interesting. How does that make you feel? Like, is
Mm.
that weird, or and she's like, she will share so much information with him. And I'm in the room sitting there, but I'm also taking notes like, I need to do this more because he is so great with not being the parent.
Well,
Can I say one last thing? Just
Yeah.
just about, I know, Evan, you're about to say something, but what I want to say too is that if you're listening to your kids, one of the best things you can do is repeat back what you heard them say,
Mm-hmm.
because that reinforces that you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
And what if you got it wrong? What if you heard something different than they were saying? Then that is the opportunity for them to correct what you heard, and then you can go from there. So I just want to say that one thing too, because that's huge. It's
no,
huge.
I think that's great. And, I want to expand on that. This is the thing that I've had to learn the most in the last year is when I'm talking to my daughter, I have to put the phone down. Like it's not even just put the phone down. It's like put it in a different room so she gets my undivided
Mm-hmm.
attention. But here's something interesting. You're kind of a marketing guru. You
Mm-hmm.
came from marketing. Obviously, I think there's this idea that telling is almost selling, right? Like the more that we talk, and I remember looking back on some of these sales courses and some of these marketing courses that I went to, is like some of the best things that we can do for building customer relationships is just ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to tell someone, you don't have to sell them on something. Is ask the questions and they'll open up on what it is that you need to address to talk to them about your product, your service, whatever it is. And it's kind of funny as you were talking about that. I just remember the telling isn't necessarily selling. It's like we can shut up and create more value.
Chances are we've already said it 100 times anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They already have heard us say it, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to keep saying it. It's okay. And also, if your daughter doesn't want to talk to you, respect that
Mm-hmm.
for now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if she gets in the car, don't take it personally. Give her
Yeah.
space, give her
Yeah.
time. She'll
Yeah.
come to you if she knows that she can, and she won't be judged or criticized, right?
Yeah,
That's the
she
key
she
too.
usually tells me because I do the listening part really good right now lately, and she's just like, "So you're not gonna say anything?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm listening to you, baby. I don't know. Do you want me to ask you questions? I sometimes don't want to ask questions until you want to share how you feel about it. But
Mhm.
how does that make you feel?" And then I'll repeat what she says, but she wants me to fish. So
Okay.
it's interesting, this new relationship, teenage
Yeah.
relationship.
Oh God, I'm like, I'm just not even looking forward to it. I'm so freaked out about her
But
being a
she, yeah,
teenager.
I know
It's okay.
it's
I'll be here for you. I'll be here.
Oh God,
I can help you. I
I'm
can
gonna
help
put you
you.
on speed dial. Like, Robin, like, what do I do?
Well, and that is the problem with teenagers too, is they look like adults. Sometimes they act like adults, but they are not adults. And here's the thing with your daughter, she's 6, right?
Yeah.
she hasn't even started to grow the part of her brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is reasoning, rational thought, problem solving, emotional regulation. All of the good stuff is in that part of the brain. She's still really living in that emotional part of the brain. So it is confusing because sometimes they look older and we want to treat them older, but they're not, right? So there is that delicate dance, right? And then she hands you her fruit bowl and wants more and doesn't say a word. And you're like, what? But
Yeah.
that's a totally typical 6-year-old sort of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the movie Bye Bye Love?
I think I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Great movie from the 1980s. It had like Paul Reiser and Matthew Modine, and it was all about parents, divorced parents, and how they did like the kids interchange and all that. And Paul Reiser has a 15-year-old daughter, and she's going through some things, and he's talking to his friend. He's like, "Yeah, this is an awkward age for girls." And his friend's like, "What age is that?" And he's like, 15 through 35.
Yeah. 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 Pretty much.
I'm gonna get a hate mail on that one.
Do you want to
For my
do you want me
daughter.
to answer your question though about the bowl of
I would love that. I think it goes so much beyond that. That's one of those things that
Mhm.
we're having that issue, but it's really, she has two very vocal parents, right? We're on camera, we're in, we're kind of, I don't want to say we're in the spotlight a lot, but we definitely talk a lot. And I don't
Mhm.
know if her issues are systemic from that or if this is just a development thing, but it's more than just the bowl of fruit.
Yeah, it
It's
always is.
feeling like I feel like she doesn't have the confidence to ask for what it is that she wants. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I give that to her? How do I allow her to talk about her emotions? She doesn't do that at all. Like, if she's upset, she runs out of the room, she'll hide under a pillow. I can't get her to talk about anything. And so I'm feeling very inept as a parent right now, wanting to try to solve those problems, or not necessarily solve them, just be there to listen. But I don't
Mhm.
know how to get her to talk.
Okay, well, first of all, Evan, I just want to say what a beautiful parent you are. Like, that is so lovely to hear a dad say that.
Hmm.
Not all dads are like that, and I just want to like give you like a big hug because that's so wonderful.
Thank you.
And yeah, it really truly is. And you know what? She lives in her emotional brain right now. She's at her age, she's probably started to grow that prefrontal cortex in her head, in her brain. But here's the thing that I want to say about that in order to help you is you've got to help her name her emotions too. Like, oh, it looks like you're feeling really sad right now, or it looks like you're feeling embarrassed, or maybe you're feeling frustrated. That's how you start, right? So you, Evan, you have to have a good sense of your own emotions to name those of your daughter, right? So you need to know those too. And we have not up until this point been very good at raising our boys with a strong emotional intelligence. We give them words like mad, sad, and glad. Girls, we give an entire cornucopia of words to describe their emotions, like, "Do you have butterflies?" We don't say that to boys, you know?
No,
Like, at all. So we've got to be aware of that too, that you are at a little bit of a disadvantage being a guy because we haven't nurtured that. I mean, maybe your parents were different, I don't know, but
no,
so here's the thing. The great thing is that is emotional intelligence is not set in stone. Your IQ is, but not your EQ. So you can learn and grow that at any time. And that's something I love to talk about. And we actually make a priority to talk in, and I know it sounds kind of lame, but to talk in the language of feelings and needs, right? Like, I'm needing this right now and I'm feeling this right now. So that's one part. With your daughter, when she hands you that bowl and doesn't say anything, I would say one of two things or both. I would say, "Oh, it looks like you want more. Is that right?" And then she'll say yes or no. Or you can say, "Do you have a question?" Just that. That's it. No lecture, nothing. And then if she just if she just nods her head, like, "I have a question," say, "Okay, I'd like you to say it. You tell me what you want," and then that's it. Leave it there, right? Um, so will you try that?
oh, absolutely.
Okay. And then when she runs away crying, you know what? You can just say, "Look, you can call it out. Looks like you're really upset right now." And to be able to hold the space for her, like, to accept and almost encourage her emotions and say, "Yeah, it makes sense that you're upset right now. I get it. Would you like to come and sit with me? And we can sit together until you feel better." something like that, right? Just encourage her that her feelings are okay. Sometimes we inadvertently shame our kids for their feelings and emotions and that sort of thing, because our kids come to us so willing to feel their feelings. It's us who are more uncomfortable with it. And it sounds like, Evan, you're not that way, which is so exciting and so refreshing to hear, right? You're like, tell me about your feelings. That is unusual and lovely. So I love it.
Well, it's funny. I grew up in being the oldest of four, two boys, two girls. The girls got all of that, like all of these feelings. And my mom was really good with that. My dad was really good with that. And with, me, it was like, are you okay? That's all. You're like a switch. Okay, not okay. That's it. So
Yeah.
I think for me, it took the divorce and really understanding and therapy and understanding, real feelings to embrace this. But it's so hard because I want her to share that. And, that's that challenge is feeling I don't know, just underperforming as a parent, not being able to give her that space or find a way that she feels that she has that space to discuss it. But I think it's, she feels that with her mom too. So it's not like it's,
Is that common with kids that age? Because I feel like my daughter was kind of the same. She would just have a hard time just to say
Well,
things.
I do think it is. I mean, it's something we need to teach our kids, right? And we can only teach as much as we know. There's actually a really great site. It's called groktheworld.com, GROK theworld.com. And they are what they do is nonviolent communication, but they have board games, they have card games that are all about the language of feelings and needs.
Mm.
So if your child doesn't know them and you don't know them, play those games together so that you can start to unravel this whole emotional world that we have inside ourselves. And the reason why that's important is because brain wise, when you can have your emotions validated by somebody else, or if you can recognize your own emotions, what happens is your brain actually releases soothing neurotransmitters to the part of the brain that's activated, which is the amygdala. That's the emotional center of the brain, to calm it down. So if you've ever felt like, oh, I'm feeling off right now, I don't know what's wrong, I don't know why I feel this way, and then you say, you know what, I think I'm just really scared. Immediately you go, oh, yeah, that's what it is. And that's the brain working. And that's what calms you down. And we know without a shadow of a doubt, through studies, through science, through looking at the brain through fMRI machines, that if you tell your child, get over it, stop crying, use your words, that does not work in ever calming your child down. But you saying, it looks like you're really sad right now, or it looks like you're struggling and you're frustrated and worried, validating that emotion absolutely works to stop that meltdown and stop those big emotions.
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I think we
I
should all walk around with MRIs on, like the head scans. Like let's just map the human emotional day.
I notice my daughter will say a lot. I have a question. That's what
Yeah.
she's, and
Oh,
she
oh, sorry.
that's what she will say. She will say, I have a question. And she has been saying that for years, that even teachers will be like, I have an answer. Because before she asks the question, she has to say that statement all the time. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's because she feels like she wants everybody to stop what they're doing and listen to her,
Mm.
or, and that could be the reason, but it's, she's a wise little girl.
That's
Yeah.
that's
she's
interesting.
she's teaching me a lot, but she will say that. I'm like, baby, sometimes you don't have to say I have a question, you can just ask the question. And she's like, I know, but I like saying that first. It makes
Mm.
me feel like everybody listens
Mm.
more.
And you know what you can say is just tell me more. Okay,
Mhm.
tell me more.
Yeah.
I wonder. So that's interesting because I think my daughter does a little bit of that, and I wonder if that's part and parcel to the way that like I've always been somewhat distracted, or I've
Mhm.
got we're multitasking.
Mhm.
So like I've got 9,000 things going on, and it's like she'll be like, Dad, can I ask you something? Like,
Mhm.
Mm.
oh, and I think now that's my cue to like stop, put the phone down,
Me
walk
too.
into another room, like let's sit down on the couch. It should be like, can I have something to eat? Like, okay, that
I
was
know, it's super simple, and they will say that to us. I think it's also, I think you're right. I think it's because we're multitasking as parents,
Mm.
especially as single parents, and they're trying to let us know, is it okay if we interrupt you?
Mm.
And then I'm like, one moment before you ask that question, and she'll wait.
so this is one I've learned really I've learned the hard way that like the vernacular is, oh, just give me a couple seconds, right? Be right there. And she's like, she starts counting now. It's like, that was a lot more than 2 seconds. Like, like I'm screwing with my daughter's perception of time. Like she thinks 2 seconds is about, 45 minutes.
Oh
So
boy, we're in trouble.
yeah, this is why the 529, which is the college savings plan, we should also be able to contribute to a tax-free and tax-deferred therapy plan for our
I
kids.
know. Well, this is us creating this platform for ourselves. We're helping others, but we're also getting therapy for ourselves.
Totally.
Good.
Robin,
I love it.
go
I
ahead and
love
send the bill to Chady. So let's talk a little more about your story, because I'd like to bring this back to, you kind of had these epiphanies, you went through all of this work. How did you transition from, this career in marketing to where it is that you're now? And what is really your focus in, teaching these skills? How do you, you're making such a positive impact in the world. How do you do that? And what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Exactly that. Knowing that I can help people be less angry and less triggered and understand their kids better. When I said before that that there's two sides to everything, like understand your child's behavior is huge. Just understanding them in terms of their emotions, that their emotions are valid, and we often discount their emotions, that they have needs, and needs that are not like, I need this lollipop or this red balloon. I need you to give me attention. That is an absolute need, but we blame them, shame them. Oh my God, they need so much attention. You know what I mean? But they do, they really do. But also that sometimes our expectations are out of alignment with what our kids can actually do. And so understanding our child and their behavior, but also taking their behavior and looking at it as secondary, taking it and putting it aside for a minute and saying, okay, what actually was driving that behavior? Because you know that when you lose your shit, it's because you're feeling something or you're saying something to yourself about the situation, right? So I use cognitive behavioral therapy with everything, right? The situation itself isn't good or bad. There's a triangle here, right? At the top of the triangle are your thoughts about the situation that leads to your feelings, that leads to your actions and reactions, right? But if you can change the top and look at the situation in a different way, like my child is just struggling, it makes you be more curious, have empathy, have compassion, right? So you can address the situation in a much different way. But then also, giving parents the tools and the things to say, the words to use, like tell me more, or how come, right? Those things are really simple but powerful, because it allows our kids to be who they are and feel comfortable being who they are, and not having parents that judge them, criticize them, put them down, or run their own agenda, where our kids feel like they're less than because they don't measure up to what our expectations are. So it's really like taking parenting and really just shifting our focus and our perspective. And that's, to me, like the most exciting thing ever. And when I have somebody that says, like, I never thought of it that way, I'm like, yes. So to me, that is the best feeling ever. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope
No,
it did, but
it
that is
absolutely
what
did.
excites me in my geeky way.
No, I love it. And it just makes me realize how weird we are as a world, where I need a license to cut your hair, but I don't need a license to bring another human being into the world.
100%.
That's
Yeah.
scary.
I think that having the tools makes you not only a better parent, but a better human
Yeah.
and to the
Yes.
world, because it,
They're
it does
actually
help your
universal.
relationships with anybody, and whether if it's business, your personal relationships, and
Tell me more.
road rage.
So what I heard you say is, no, yeah, right. Do it with your boyfriend, and these are universal truths, and really, that's kind of the secret, is that these
Yeah.
help in every way, shape, or form. Nothing is ever personal, ever, 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 ever. It's never personal, and
Sounds
just
very four agreements like.
yeah, right. But it isn't, and you know what? It's okay to be curious. And
Mhm.
by the way, when you're curious, and I love this, I had Mike Alpert on my podcast,
I
who
heard
was
that podcast. It was
oh yes, the
good.
Curiosity Blueprint. He
Mhm.
says that hate and judgment can't exist when there's curiosity. I'm like, yes, that is awesome. So be more curious. Just ask why, how come, These are important questions to ask your kids.
Yeah. And I love
Like,
that.
I just want to go talk to my daughter right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I just also I want to make a point that it was really powerful when you said a lot of it has to do with us growing up a certain way and trying to
Mhm.
repeat that behavior because we don't have the tools and to be a parent. No one gives us a blueprint and says, "Here you go, you're a new parent. This is what you got to do." We kind of just
Exactly.
emulate what we thought our parents did because we thought that's kind of a parent. That's what they did. So I'm going to be this parent. And it doesn't have to be that way. My mom
No.
did never talk to me. My mom never, I think my sisters talk to me more about like me right now, the car rides and how was your day? How does that make you feel? What did this girl do to
Mm,
you? My mom never did that. She was
mm,
a caretaker food. I,
yeah,
washing my clothes, everything. She's a great mom. She did the best that she could as a mother,
mm,
never
mm,
pointing the finger to her, but also too, we didn't have a communication
yeah.
relationship at all. And my dad either.
but
It's
isn't
that
that's
generational
that
pattern. Yeah.
that's kind of love languages to a certain extent. Like that's how your
Mm.
mom shows, it's like this is how I show love is that I do all of these things for you. My
You
grandma,
see, you're
it's
learning.
don't yeah. I've got an issue with love languages. Uh, but like my grandmother was very much the same way in the sense like
Hmm.
that's how she showed love for everybody. Is you'd walk into her house,
Hmm.
the first thing she'd ask you is, "Are you hungry?"
Yep, my mom too.
Regardless whether or not you said yes or no, she still fed you.
Hmm.
Like you had to walk into grandma's house not eating within like a couple hours prior to getting there because you were going to get fed. But I think the other thing, and a lot of parents have done this that we've interviewed on the show, and I'd love to get your take on this, Robin, is they'll do the opposite, right? So they'll look at some things that they knew were
Mm.
bad about their parents, and they'll say, "I'm going to do the exact opposite." But it's still funny that that pendulum swing almost creates a issue of sorts. And I was the same way. My dad was hyper militant, it's my way or the highway. And I'm like, I'm never going to be that way. And then I found myself swinging so much to the other side. And there's got to be that happy medium. So,
Hmm.
looking at our paradigm, our parent paradigm, if we want to call that, what work do you recommend that people do to kind of understand their, where they came from? And then how do they take that and kind of emerge into the parents that they want to be?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So what I do is I take my clients through a bunch of questions, and it starts with what do you do that was also done to you, to your kids? Like how do you show up for your kids that your parents did to you? So hitting, yelling, shaming, that kind of thing, right? What do you do? And then how did that make you feel? And what did you tell yourself about about yourself, right? Because that's going to make you so to give you an example, that's probably going to make you feel, ashamed, disregarded, not good enough, you know, always wrong, always bad. And what did I tell myself? That I don't matter, my feelings don't matter, or well, all that kind of stuff. And then how did that hold you back in your life? How has it held you back? It made me a people pleaser, or it made me, I was always called selfish in my life. My dad always called me selfish, and I
Really?
wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. And but that's the record that plays in my head, right? Those assholes that are in your head telling you that you're the worst and you're not good enough. Well, mine was I'm selfish. And so what I did is, because I knew that I wasn't, but that was the way he saw me. I can even remember the time that he decided that I was. And we do this as parents, right? We see behavior, we label it. And once we label a behavior, we no longer see why that behavior is there. It takes us out of curiosity, it takes us out of compassion and empathy, and that's dangerous because it takes you out of seeing who your child really is, but it also internalizes that for your child. So they see that and think, well, I guess I am selfish, right? Because our kids are egocentric, and if I say that your behavior is bad, our kids take it as I'm bad, right? And that is a mind trip that we don't want for our kids. So looking at that, how it made, and for me, I became a people pleaser. So I actually, because he mislabeled me as selfish, I would dishonor myself so to please other people, because I didn't want them to know that I was actually selfish when I really wasn't. So I was like hustling all the time for praise and approval and friendship and all that kind of stuff. And that definitely held me back, and I'm still trying to stop that cycle and that conditioning that I had. Right. So
It's so fascinating that you're saying this. This is so important for women to hear
Yeah.
this too.
And here's the other part of it too. Uh, and I'm so glad that resonates with you, right? Because
Mhm,
it does leave a mark on us, doesn't it?
mhm,
Right? And that's innocent,
mhm,
innocent. Oh, she's just, she's the pretty girl,
mhm.
right? She's
Yeah.
the smart girl. She's the bookworm. She's bossy, right? Well, none of those honor who we truly are. And
Yeah.
we're not the same thing every day, right? We're different every day. So I like books today, I like music tomorrow, or whatever. I am the sum of all of those parts. But here's the other thing that I take parents through too, is once we look at that, how it held you back and different things like that, is also what do you think your parents were feeling and needing at that time too? And that is the change maker, I think, because it allows you to recognize that your parents are human too,
Mhm,
and that they might have been struggling, that maybe they were struggling in their relationship and that's why they didn't talk to you. That your mother, maybe she was traumatized by an emotional experience and just could not talk about emotions, therefore it was only about food for her. I don't know if that's true or not.
it's very
And
true.
yeah.
Very
So
true.
so so it helps you to kind of have some empathy and compassion for your parents too, and for you to see that it wasn't about you,
Mhm.
right? It
Yeah.
wasn't about you, that it's their own stuff that came into their parenting, just like your own stuff is coming into your parenting,
Mhm.
right? And so to just release some of that anger, and
I imagine that's very healing for people to go through and their relationship with their parents.
it was really
Yeah.
healing for me and with my dad, because he was gone by the time I did this, and
Mhm.
it was like, oh, whoa, I didn't realize it. Like, I just didn't know. And how would I know? How would I know unless I did the work?
So the tough question for you, Robin, is do you feel like he passed believing that you were selfish?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't think so. I
Mhm.
don't think we did have a talk at the end. Um, we didn't talk about me as much as we talked about him, because he hurt us as in the way he lived his life and different things. Um, so yeah, we definitely did resolve some things, but there still are some unresolved hurts, um, that I'm aware of. But that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so.
You'll get my therapy bill later.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So
But also too how she's living her life now, where she's creating a new legacy for her family,
Mm,
and also being
mm,
transparent and sharing that, because again, I think that's where the healing comes.
yeah.
My father passed away 2.5 years ago, and I didn't realize I kept choosing pattern relationships like my dad, like
Yeah.
the person who provides for the family, but you can't have a life. And I
Yeah.
kept choosing relationships like that. And I'm like, why is this not working out? I feel like I'm a good woman. And it was because I kept choosing partners that weren't going to let me evolve or grow as a person, or a person who has a career.
Mm,
So it's also, stuff that we have to do the work ourselves.
so then this is a question for both of you, right? And both of my parents are still alive, but as you lose a parent and you start to go through this process, can you evolve in can you evolve emotionally after they pass? Can you kind of go through this work and like you talk about not being the selfish person, does that change once your dad passes away? Can you continue to fix that relationship even though he's not here physically?
I think you can. I think you can, because that's what forgiveness is all about, right? Self-forgiveness, forgiveness of others. You do that for yourself, not for the other person. And now that I know that, he was coming from a place of deep insecurity, and feeling like he didn't measure up, and all those things that I realize now, it really it really does free me from feeling that way. And I also am aware that I'm not selfish, and maybe sometimes I am, and that's okay. I am who I
Nothing wrong
am,
with
and
that.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. I would say yes. My father did the best he could, and my
Yeah.
parents, both of them, they did the tools that they had. And I
Mm,
feel like now he would be so proud to see what I'm doing and how I continue to keep getting back up from starting over and not taking no for an
mm.
answer, and just, yeah, I think he would be proud. But he also, he grew up a lot different than than all of us.
Our
So
parents were a transitionary generation, right? And I'm not sure how old
mhm,
you are, Robin, but I kind of look at it as the Diners Club generation. That first one after the world's greatest generation, where they were more immediate gratification. We kind of had this technological evolution, but not to the point that we're at. And so it was like, yeah, parenting was so completely different. Now we have all of these tools. It's like, go build a house with this amazing set of tools. We asked them to build a house with like, a plastic screwdriver,
mhm.
and so it's kind of.
Sometimes they had to look for the tools. They were never even given the tools. We have access to so much.
Yeah.
So I would say it's just different, and it's just nice to know that we can all grow from our parents, you know, and I wouldn't even say wrongdoing, because it's, again, it's not even any of their faults. Because my mom is home right now, with she's taking care of her mother, and it's interesting because her mother didn't raise her, and her seeing me raise my daughter. So yeah, 4 generations in the house.
Mhm.
Things are just, they think things should be done differently,
Mhm.
and me communicating with my daughter as a friend, like having her have an open dialogue, it's something new for them,
Mhm.
because unless you're spoken to, you're not supposed to
Mhm.
speak. And that's
Mhm.
that's and from our parents growing up, you don't cry unless you're bleeding, or you don't, expressing
Mhm.
emotions is not the norm. So them
Mhm.
seeing me raise my daughter is something very new for them.
Our parents did a great job of fucking us up with the best of intentions.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's hard. I mean, look, that's hard having judgment around your parenting, having to explain yourself. That's a whole other episode,
that
because that's a big deal. A lot of people feel that. A lot of people feel that.
It's more than
Yeah.
an episode. 4 generations of Latino women in one house. That's a sitcom.
yeah. It's called Jane Diversion.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's
Coming next year, or next season on Netflix. It's uh how much, what are we at on time here? Oh wow. We are
Yeah.
so Robin, we've covered so much, and I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface here.
yeah.
So um as we kind of try to close that, or put a bow on this one, is there anything else you want to chat about? Anything else that really drives you, and some things that you would love to leave our listeners with, as far as more tools in the toolbox?
Well, I wrote something down here as we were talking. You said nobody tells you how to do it. I've said the same thing. No one tells you how to parent. And the funny thing is, like, I just can't say it enough, right? Like, we don't put up a shelf without instructions. I say that all the time. Like, right? Go to IKEA, get a shelf. You got a list of instructions. You don't make a new meal without a recipe or whatever. But here is a child, right? Like, yes, you need a license to cut hair, but you don't to be a parent.
Mhm.
And so it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not know what you're doing. And it's okay that you feel like maybe you're failing, but it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to put your hand up and say, you know what, this is harder than I thought it was, because there is a community of people out there. There are so many people out there that not only want to help, but just want to give you a soft place to fall. And if you can't find that in your own immediate family, there are other people out there that can help you. You don't have to feel alone, and you don't have to struggle in silence like I did. I was at the place in my life back then where I thought I would leave my family, and I maybe thought I would leave this earth. Nobody should get to that point.
Mm.
Nobody should. There are so many beautiful people out here. I want to say myself included. I can help you. These kinds of podcasts are super helpful, but you don't have to do this alone. And it is not weak to ask for help. That is the biggest act of courage you could ever do, is put your hand up and say, I'm struggling and I need some help. Please, somebody help me.
That's awesome.
Well
So
said.
well said. Yes. Tell us more about your podcast. What's the name of it? And so I
Yeah,
would
it's
love for our listeners to hear it and
Thank
subscribe.
you. Thank you. Yeah, it's called Parenting Our Future. It's on every single podcast platform, and I bring on really, really awesome guests to talk about lots of different things, from curiosity to narcissism to co-parenting to all the things. And my hope is that people will be able to show up for their kids in a different way by listening and getting some free advice and help and support.
Thank you
Wonderful.
so much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Robbin McManne, I think that she touched on one of the things that we like to focus on here at Single Parent Daily is that parenting is a community, and it doesn't matter the title of the book or the podcast, is that there are amazing resources out there. There are people who recognize that this is a challenge, whether you're a single parent, whether you've got 4 generations of women living in the same home, that it still takes a community, and it takes a community of people who are willing to say, hey, we got you. And that's why we're so excited to share Robbins' message. We're going to put all of her information in the show notes. She's just another one of those community members who's committed to making sure that this journey of parenting and life is a little bit easier, and we've got the proper resources in place. So, Robbin, thank you so much for being a part of our show, and we can't wait to share this with our listeners.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
You're awesome.
And you're coming back, by the way.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's going to be a Robbin part 6.
Yeah, it's going to be called Cooking Recipes.
Cooking recipe, yes, in the kitchen with Robbin
Yes.
and Chady, and I'll just drink
She's
wine
going to
and
give
eat.
us recipes on how to be better parents.
And recipes, parenting recipes and cooking recipes.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Ooh,
And
I like
I'll just drink wine in the
I
background.
mean, I'm still a rookie, guys.
On the cooking side?
Yeah, I don't want to say
You're gonna come to California, or you're going to come to Vancouver, because we got to do this in
coming to
person.
Vancouver.
Yeah, we're coming to Vancouver. Yeah.
I figured.
And the way that, without causing a major political conversation, people, at the rate that the United States is going, it might be a permanent relocation.
I say nothing. I say nothing about that.
Yeah.
I plead the fifth as well.
But you are welcome. You are
Yes.
welcome.
Okay, we might just edit that part out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to sign this off. We're going to have to go check the polls because it's been, I think, 750 days since the election, and we still don't know who the president of the United States is. And we'll leave all the political commentary aside. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Single Parent Daily show with your host.
Chady Denmore.
Are you sure about that?
Shush your mouth.
And Evan DeMarco. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or whatever platform you get this. Although I think at the last download, 97% of our downloads are iTunes. Does anybody actually listen to podcasts anywhere else?
Not really. Yeah.
All right. Well, check us out on YouTube there because you get some great video, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Robbin.
Thank you.